beautiful?
Hello, lovers of the world. This is Cinta speaking. I love finding new music. It's really fun to find something new to obsess over, whether that's a new album, a new artist, or a new song. It's once again time to reflect and rank every musical project that I listened to this month. So the highest tier in my list is called Year-End List Material. This tier is specifically for releases that came out in 2024. This is a way for me to keep track of all of the new projects that I like and to remind myself to look back on these releases when it comes to the end of the year to figure out what will stay on my year-end list. Only 2024 releases are allowed in this tier because obviously those are the only ones I will consider, while in other tiers, any album from any year can be put in. The musical projects in this tier are obviously the ones I like the most and feel have some longevity. In the tier below that, we've got French Toast. This is for albums and projects that I feel are perfectly enjoyable. This is also the highest an album can be placed in if that album was not released in 2024. This is also where I would put albums that I, even though enjoyed and liked, would not consider for my end of year list. The tier below that is called Gems Found in the Mind. This is a tier where I would put albums that have some treasured tracks that I enjoyed and will remember and will revisit in the future. The tier below that is called The Most Album Ever. So this is basically where I would put albums where I don't really have much to say about. It's a decent or pleasant enough listening experience, but it doesn't have any memorable tracks that will remind me that the album exists or will make me come back for more, unlike albums placed in the tier above it. And then the second to last tier is called, well, at least I learned something new. So I'm always down for expanding my horizons and I like to stay up to date on releases. But if that album doesn't hit, then that's just that, it doesn't hit. And the bottom tier is called The Eggs You Break for Your French Toast. This is a more positive way of saying that I didn't like the album, but at least I gave it a shot. And of course, it calls back to my second to highest tier, French Toast. In your search for music that you really like, you'll just come across music that doesn't resonate with you, and that's okay. I always hesitate to call an album explicitly bad, especially because when it comes to taste in general, music taste in particular, all of the reasons why you dislike an album are also all the reasons why somebody else would like that album. As a disclaimer, just because I put an album in this tier doesn't mean that I have anything in particular against that artist. I am just grading that particular project. And now that that's out of the way, let's get to what I listened to in September. First, I listened to The Secret of Us by Gracie Abrams. This is released in 2024. Gracie Abrams is a female singer-songwriter, and this is her debut album. One huge aspect of her career is that she is the daughter of the famous movie director J.J. Abrams. This, alongside Gracie's association with Taylor Swift, has solidified her standing as a budding new addition to the heavy rotations of indie girly pops all over the world. I have never listened to Gracie before this album, and I really wanted to form my own opinion on her music that wasn't tainted by other people's critiques. And when I listened to the album, I have to say that I definitely do not get the hype. I feel like her lyric writing is still pretty pedestrian, and that's totally fine at her age. I think she's still in her early 20s. At this stage of her career, she just doesn't seem to have a distinct identity that separates her from any other female singer-songwriters that we have right now. I'm also not a big fan of her vocal tone either. She has some vocal talent, I will admit to that, but this breathy and overly emotional delivery has just never been my taste. It's never a vocalization style that I have warmed up to at all. I do think that she has a lot of potential. I just think she needs a clearer vision and a more unique spark. I want to say that again, it's just because she's young and has yet to develop her own voice or style, and she will continue to do so as she progresses further in her career. But we do have to acknowledge that she does not exist in a vacuum. There's so many great singer-songwriters that Abrams is competing with, and the music kind of speaks for itself for me. What I want from music is to be offered a new perspective or a new story or a new way of articulating universal feelings. And this album just did none of that, instead only serving kind of generic I'm sad over a breakup vibes that I could honestly just get from anyone else. And probably better too. The only song that I actually felt like I could understand Gracie Abrams as a person is Normal Thing. So this song is about falling in love with a person, and the first time that you encounter that person is through seeing them in a movie. Now, this is a premise that you can kind of see fairly frequently, which is this concept of crushing on a celebrity or worshipping a pop star, etc. And for us mere mortals, that is just a fairy tale. However, because Gracie Abrams is actually moving in the same upper echelon circles as that actor or that celebrity, not only is it plausible for her to fall into a romantic relationship with them, it's almost kind of expected. And so when you break up with that other celebrity, then all you have are the memories of your relationship, but also the movies and the media that that person or that ex has been in. And presumably because that ex is a public figure, you can't ever escape them because they're pretty much plastered all over social media. So to me, that's a really interesting story from her, and it's exactly the kind of unique perspective that I'd really love to see and hear more from Gracie Abrams. I'm sure there are other unique experiences that only she can have that the average person like you and me or the rest of her fan base will just never have because of her wealth and connections. And I feel like there's just a lot of potential for her to write about those, to not only get more unique and interesting songs from her, but for the listener to also know what it's like to be on the other side of wealth. The other song that I also sort of like is I Love You, I'm Sorry. Honestly, I do feel a bit Stockholm syndromed into liking it because I just kept hearing it everywhere. And over time, I do feel like I've started to relate a little bit to the lyrics and the way that she delivers them. You can actually feel and hear the devastation and the deprecation in the way that she sings, which I appreciate. And I think overall, my problem with the album is that a lot of the production choices here are quite subtle and subdued, likely because of Aaron Dessner's doing. So Aaron Dessner is a member of the indie band The National, which, by the way, I'm wearing their t-shirt for today. And since this is, I think, their first time collaborating, maybe both parties just need some more time seeing eye to eye. I feel like most of Aaron Dessner's work, at least for The National, circles around devastation and regret that only comes from getting older and having more experiences with really, complicated relationships. And I feel like Gracie just hasn't had time to kind of deal with that level of emotions. That's why she can't really deliver in that same aspect, because she still sounds so young. And I feel like she doesn't sound weighed down enough by her experiences in the way that the music does. I hope that makes sense. So it kind of feels like they don't align almost. Overall, I didn't connect with the album. I'm gonna put this in the eggs you break for your French toast. And then I listened to Empathogen by Willow Smith. This is an album that was released in 2024. Now, it is not lost on me that I immediately follow up the last album with another album from a Nepo baby. But I feel like any criticisms I have of Gracie Abrams as a young artist is very much not applicable to Willow Smith as an artist, because for one thing, this is Willow Smith's 6th album. Like, she has been making music for so long. And if you don't know, Willow Smith is the daughter of Will Smith, who is a very famous actor slash director slash producer, etc. And you can tell from this album, even if this is your first time listening to Willow Smith's music, that Willow has so much experience with music. I've been loosely following Willow's progression throughout the years, and when you do that, you really get the sense that she is constantly pushing herself in her work. This project, Empathogen, is simultaneously something I expected but also didn't expect from her. Expected in the sense that I knew that Willow is always going to go above and beyond for her music, and did not expect in the sense that I just never thought she would go for a very explicitly jazzy sound like she does in this. And this is because she has collaborated with the legendary multi-instrumentalist Jon Batiste. I'm not a particularly big fan of jazz myself, but this is hard to not like because of just how vibrant and full of life it is. It's just so much personality, and she just has so many ideas that I feel like she executes really well with the resources at hand, which is, again, very famous multi-instrumentalist Jon Batiste. So even though jazz is not my cup of tea, and even though this was really challenging for me to digest, I just find it really, really refreshing. I am going to put this in French toast because of how much I enjoyed it. My favorite song is Symptom of... And then I listened to the Crazy EP by Sserafim. This was released in 2024, and Sserafim is a K-pop girl group that I promise I do like and have actually liked a lot of their music in the past. I understand that if you've been following me for a while, maybe it doesn't sound like it because I have mentioned that I did not really enjoy their last EP. And it's just kind of very recently where I feel like I've been turning away from the output that they've been giving out. That's kind of just the nature of K-pop. They're trying out new things and I just have to wait for the next release to see whether or not they impressed me. Because I did not like the last EP, I had really high expectations and really strong hopes for this next project. And unfortunately, this EP will suffer the same fate as its predecessor in the sense that I came away quite disappointed. I honestly don't have a lot of nice things to say about the EP, except that I can still see myself enjoying some of the tracks like 1-800, Hot and Fun, and Crazy if I was in like a club setting, because I feel like the nonsensical lyrics and the energetic beat just finds a home in a classic party setting. But as it is in my daily life, it's not something I definitely reach for. So I am unfortunately gonna put this in. Well, at least I learned something new. Slightly better than the last EP, but not by much. And then I listened to 40 by Okdal. So Okdal is a K-indie female singer-songwriter duo. It's honestly really annoying to go from being a K-pop fan to a K-indie fan because as a K-pop fan, you're pretty spoiled for English translations on the lyrics, but you just don't get to access that when you're a K-indie fan because there's just not as many resources available or fan translations as available. So it is immensely frustrating to not know what the lyrics are to any of the songs in the album, but I'm just going to assume that the lyrics are as comforting as the songs sound. I would classify this album as a perfect winter listen in the sense that it's very cozy and comforting, and I can totally imagine myself revisiting this during the colder months because right now in New Zealand it is summer, so the mood of the album doesn't exactly align with the current weather here. There's something about the songs that just feels so Christmassy. I just feel so warmed and healed and cocooned by the sweet embrace of the music. The voices are so cutesy and sweet, and their style is so whimsical that you almost forget that they're in their late 30s. But when they sing, it sounds like every syllable that comes out of their mouth is like a droplet of wisdom. That's how like they sound so kind to you. I don't know. I just feel like every song is a hug. So I really like this. I'm going to put this in Gems Found in the Mind. And my favorite songs are Special Idiot and To Begin. And then I listened to Come On by Orange. Orange is a female Vietnamese pop singer and Cameron is her debut album. So this is a pop album in the truest sense. It features an eclectic array of genres that showcase the artist's awareness of the current state of global pop. The first half of the album features a lot of expressive, explosive, emotional pop ballads that showcases the singer's ability to become a very significant pop diva. She is an amazing vocalist. In some of these tracks, she is absolutely belting her head off. She literally sounds like someone broke her heart and left her for dead in like a dark alleyway or something. And she sounds incredible. Whereas the second half of the album features some more R&B influences and also features the singer's kind of like more youthful and feminine and cutesy side, which I think will go very well on the radio. Overall, I enjoy this. I'm going to put this in Gems Found in the Mind, and this is definitely an artist that I wouldn't mind revisiting in the future. And then I listened to Cinema Paradise by ZeroBaseOne. So ZeroBaseOne is a K-pop boy group that I usually like the music of, which is why I tend to follow up on their releases. But wow, this project was really not for me. When I heard the title track, I was pretty excited for what the rest of the project holds, but I find that the album/EP actually deviates from ZeroBaseOne's signature sound a lot, which is a shame because I actually like their signature sound a lot. The fact that they even have a signature sound is a huge plus for me in terms of K-pop. Over the months that they've been active, I feel like they've done a really good job of solidifying their territory almost. Like, I think I've mentioned this in the past where I was impressed by ZeroBaseOne's ability to hop on a trend and make that sound their own. It just so happens that I guess that sound, which is kind of like UK garage influenced pop music, is kind of slowly on the decline, and I can see why maybe in this title track it doesn't sound very much like it. And then when you listen to the actual project, only one song actually sounds like it has that original ZeroBaseOne UK garage influence sound, which is Insomnia, and that happens to be my favorite song of the project. However, I did not like any of the other tracks, and I'm just gonna put this in the most album ever. And then I listened to She Reaches Out by Chelsea Wolfe. This is my first time listening to Chelsea Wolfe. I don't really know much about her. I just saw that she got a lot of great reviews, and at the time I was in the mood for discovering something new. This project was very exciting but also quite harrowing, haunting and eerie, but not completely inaccessible. I actually, considering that this was my first time listening to industrial music in general, it wasn't as hard to digest as I initially expected. The vocals are great, the production is really epic with these really cinematic swells of emotion that I really enjoyed. I definitely liked the album enough to return to it a few times, but I don't feel particularly moved or emotionally touched by it. So I'm just gonna put this in Gems Found in the Mind. And then I listened to Nonetheless by Pet Shop Boys. So Pet Shop Boys are an English synth pop duo that formed in London in 1981. I knew a few of their older, more popular songs because I grew up hearing them with my dad, who also likes new wave and just that kind of sound in general. West End Girls, What Have I Done to Deserve This, Domino Dancing, Suburbia. And then one day I was listening to this podcast interview by Bodhi A. Ashton, who had wrote a book called The Pet Shop Boys and the Political. And in that interview, he mentions that the Pet Shop Boys are still releasing music, which led me to this 2024 release, of which I would not have known existed if it wasn't for this interview. So I would really recommend listening to that podcast interview. And I also really want to read the book that they mentioned in the interview because it talks about Pet Shop Boys and the impact that they have on music, but also how the cultural and historical context of which they emerged from and how their music also impacted that cultural context. So it's very interesting. I was also very curious to see how this band that I only knew a few songs of from like the 80s would mature into basically 2024, several decades later. I honestly really enjoyed this album. They included their perspectives on growing older and seeing the city that they live in and the scene that they were a part of change, but also parts of it that they were familiar with disappear. Their nostalgia is really contagious, and I think it's because I am entering my mid-20s that I feel really empathetic to the pain of time passing and growing older, especially in songs like Why Am I Dancing, New London Boy, and New Bohemia, which ended up being my favorite songs from the project. I also really like their songwriting here because it feels very minimalist, and there's a lot of questions that they insert into the songs that adds to the real existential dread that they build in the album, constantly asking oneself and the listener, why am I dancing? Where have they gone? Les Petites Bonbons. Who dances now to their sweet song? Who are you gonna turn to out of loneliness? All very hard questions to answer, I'm sure. It was just really interesting to reflect on this album, especially in a post-Brat world, and it really reminds you that the dance floor is the best place to have an existential crisis. I wonder whether the Pet Shop Boys have listened to Brat or what they think of Charli XCX, because I feel like in some way when you listen to Brat and when you listen to Nonetheless, I kind of see both parties as kindred souls. So I'm gonna put this in Gems Found in the Mind. And then I listened to $10 Cowboy by Charlie Crockett. I thought I'd challenge myself to listen to something completely out of my usual musical diet and listen to this very country western album that got a lot of good reviews. And I have also never heard of Charlie Crockett before, so this was kind of like an experiment for myself. And to be honest, I really struggled to finish this album. Not necessarily because I think it's like particularly terrible or anything. I think it's just that I very clearly don't like country western. And it's just the clear result of me trying something new for the first time and really also not knowing what to make of not just the album but also the genre. So I'm gonna put this in the most album ever. And then I listened to an EP called Circles by Tanukichan. Tanukichan is an American musician based in San Francisco. I was recommended this EP by a friend and also because I saw that Wisp was a feature in the track list. I just think this EP is a very well executed shoegaze / noise rock project that I enjoyed immensely. So I'm gonna put this in your endless material. And then lastly, I listened to Songs About You specifically by Michelle. So Michelle is a 6-member band from New York. I love this band so much. I find them so unique. So the band comprises of 2 boys who mostly stay in the background, at least in terms of their marketing strategy. They are mostly the producers, and when the band performs live, they tend to be the ones playing the instruments. performance. Meanwhile, the rest of the four members are all girls and they do most of the singing, and they are basically the faces of the band when it comes to the promotion and the marketing. When it comes to live performances, it's the girls who are singing it the most, and they are also doing a lot of choreography on stage, which I just find so fun and cool. I have been listening to this band since their debut album in 2022. Not only did they release an EP earlier this year, but the fact that they also released a full album later in the year, I was like, it must be Christmas early. So Songs About You specifically, or Says for short, is just a really fun and down-to-earth indie pop record with extremely catchy tunes and lyrics that burrow deep inside your brain. Like, I have lost track of all the times on random days where I would just start singing along to a particular song, even though I did not listen to that song at all in the daytime. That's just how catchy and fun the lyrics are. I definitely love the first half of the album more. Like, my favorite songs are like Kathy, Dropout, Blissing. I love Mentos and Coke, but I also really like the closing track of the album called Trackstar. I was really moved by the lyrics. My favorite part is when they say, cheering for the track star, running into the unknown, open arms. And I think it just made me realize that that's kind of how I feel kind of growing up and figuring things out. Like, even if I don't know where I'm heading, I definitely do everything with so much sincerity, and I think that just really spoke to me. So don't be surprised if that song ends up being on like my favorite songs of the year or something, and you're not going to be surprised when I put this project in your endless material either. And that's all I listened to this month. Let's take a look at my tier list as it stands right now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button. If you'd like to share what your most recent favorite album is, comment it down below. And if you want to see more of my work, you are welcome to subscribe. I try to post whenever I can. My social media links are down in the description if you want to follow me there, alongside my Ko-fi and Patreon page if you want to support my work. Otherwise, I can't wait to share my love with you again next time. See you soon.